Welcome, everybody, to the Friar Talk podcast. Today, we're going to be recapping the Mets series. We're going to be talking some Padres potential trades, and then we're going to preview the Cubs series and bring Mike on. So before we kind of get into anything, let's just start out. Let's talk about Yu Darvish and Blake Snell's, both of their dominant performances on Thursday and Friday night. And Chase, you didn't really get a chance to say anything before, so I'll let you start, man. What were your thoughts about just their overall performances?
Yeah, they performed pretty well. I was expecting a little bit better of a performance from Darvish. Just because he's been as dominant as he, I didn't think he was going to let up those couple runs. Then Blake Snell blew us away. I don't think any of us were expecting 7 innings from him, much less six. He had 10 Ks, only let up a few hits, and only walked one person. That is a major improvement from what we've seen. He even said after the game, he put his changeup in timeout. He just kind of focused on his three pitches and his locations. We talked about that, and it ended up working. So hope to see him continue this. Hopefully, he continues to build off this, and maybe he brings that changeup back if it continues to be a performing pitch for him. If not, I really hope he puts it in a back seat and maybe tries to work on it more in the off season than in season.
Pretty good series overall, I thought. Obviously we struggled against Jacob DeGrom. Everybody does. And then Marcus Stroman had a good outing. But when just talking about Yu Darvish and Blake Snell, Yu Darvish had a good outing. He always has a good outing. Obviously, we always expect him to go, maybe 7 innings, probably shutout. But that's just unrealistic expectations for you. He's been a great pitcher so far this year. But I could definitely say we did not expect Blake Snell to carry a no-hitter throughout six. Like, what was it, like 6 or 6 1/3, something like that? Um, very dominant outing from Blake Snell. Love to see it. We don't want the guy to fail. We want him to be we want him to be the number 2 that we expect him to be. We want him to be the ace Blake Snell that he was in 2018. So hopefully this was a good starting point in the right direction for Blake Snell, and he starts improving off just this start.
Yeah, we were definitely not very high on Snell coming into this series. I thought that was the tougher games to win. Of course, the DeGrom game being the toughest, just because we know how nasty Jake DeGrom is. But looking into Snell a little bit, me and Isaac, we both said like, "Hey, this is going to be tough." We've seen how he's performed lately. Currently, and I don't know if you guys were watching MLB Network before his start. They were just blasting Blake Snell like over and over and over. It was brutal. They're talking about like his slugging percentage when he throws his fastballs. It was like at one of the highest rates in the league. And I mean, we were doing the same thing. We're talking about how we just weren't expecting much from him. Maybe it was time to lower expectations. Comes out, dominant performance. I mean, that's the thing. And we've talked about it before. If we don't think a guy's going to perform well, we are hoping he proves us wrong. He does that. Really happy. Hopefully, he can keep that consistency. Chase, you already brought up the changeup part of this whole situation, but you were saying that you thought that maybe he should stop throwing the changeup just because he wasn't locating it really well and wasn't throwing a lot of strikes with it. He threw three changeups on Friday night. All three were balls, and like you said, he said he put his changeup on timeout. So maybe that's a big issue, like a big issue for why he was struggling. Just that he kept just losing pitches and falling behind in the count on that changeup. So maybe that's a sign that maybe that's going to help him a lot. We'll see. I think one of the other things that we've kind of talked about is just the inconsistency of him overall. And I don't know if you guys have looked at it recently, but when he's at home, he has a 1 ERA. When he's on the road, he has a 9 ERA. So that might be part of like the issue with just the inconsistency. But as we've seen in the past, we saw this in World Series Game 6. If he is on, then he is lights out. And so we got to see a performance like that on Friday night. And we saw him get fired up in the 7th inning after he lets a single up to Lindor. Pham has an error in left field. Lindor gets to third, and then he strikes a guy out, gets someone to pop out, and then strikes out the next guy. And you see him come off. He is pumped. I think that was awesome to see. I know one of our listeners said that he was at the game, and it was just electric. It looked electric on TV as well. Everyone was pumped. You see everyone in Petco really, really pulling for him. So that was really awesome to see. So props to Blake Snell for balling out. Hopefully he can keep that consistency moving forward. I know that we definitely want him to do that, but it's been a tough early start for the season. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come. Yu Darvish, like you guys said, really, really good performance. DeGrom, the only thing I can say about that is just DeGrom is a ridiculous pitcher. It's probably got to be between him and Kershaw for the best pitchers I've seen in my lifetime. It's something special to watch him. And he even got into a couple spots. He saw Fernando get that leadoff double which was really cool to see. Just Nando going off against them, MLB Network, and he lines a double down the right field line. So that was really cool to see. Hopefully he was going to get driven in, and then DeGrom just kind of shows his stuff. We were talking about it earlier. Chase, he is the most efficient pitcher while also throwing the most strikeouts. So like strikeouts per 9. So his consistency is off the chart. He is throwing the least amount of pitches per inning in the MLB. So crazy numbers right now, just video game numbers for Jacob deGrom. Paddock, I thought Paddock, we haven't talked about him yet. I thought he pitched good enough to win, but the issue remains for this Padres team is that the lineup's struggling right now. So Chase, want to get into a little bit, maybe more on the bat side, and also just touch on Chris Paddock real quick?
Yeah, Chris Paddock did pretty well. He's continuing to show his curveball. He's not relying only on the changeup. He's only letting up a couple of runs per outing now, which is amazing compared to what he's used to doing. He's able to get out of innings when he needs to. And you know what? He just hadn't had run support. And neither of our pitchers did the last 2 games. And you know what? That could speak to the caliber of pitching that the Mets have or our struggles. Because normally with our lineup, we could, take a couple runs from these top tier pitchers. But with their way everybody's sort of been struggling and kind of off, it's kind of harder to get that. So we need our pitching to be even better than it should be when our guys are up here. Because Paddock's our 4th starter, He did his job. He only let up 3 runs in, I think it was 6 innings. That's really all you can ask from your 4th starter, if not a better performance. But even then, you might get into a little bit of unrealistic expectations for him. But Profar has been struggling. Machado wasn't in. He got ejected in the 1st inning for arguing balls and strikes after Tingler got ejected. So it was just a frustrating series for these Padres batters. The Blues kind of were a little Mets-sided. I just remember watching like the DeGrom's 1st inning and watching Machado strike out on an outside pitch that was a few inches off the plate. I was like, if the umpire does this, DeGrom's just going to eat us alive, and he did. And, I don't remember seeing too many bad calls from the Blue this game, but you can see the players are so frustrated with some of the calls that they were getting, and I don't know if that's just them taking their frustration out from their struggles out on the Blue, or if there was truly calls that I just missed. But this offense does need to turn around. Tatis can't just be the only one hitting. We haven't really had a really solid answer in left field. We're missing Grisham out in center. We saw Profar miss that fly ball. He misread it, and it turned into a double, which I believe ended up scoring a run. Maybe if Grisham's there, he makes that catch, and he maybe robs a home run in the end too. So maybe that's 2 runs saved with Grisham out there. So we're missing some of our guys. They're hurt, and this offense is struggling because of it.
Yeah, Chase, regarding the whole offensive struggles and Chris Paddock's start, I think you nailed it. Chris Paddock had a good start. He went out there, he pitched 6 really solid innings. Like you said, he's our 4th starter. We can't expect him to go out there and throw shutout ball games. We can't even expect him to be 2019 Chris Paddock, because that's just not what he is. That's not what we should expect him to be. He's going to go out there, other than that Cubs game, and he's going to hopefully allow 2 or 3 earned runs. But you can make a legitimate argument that whole Profar thing was not an earned run. So you could say he really only allowed 2 earned runs because Profar horrifically played that ball. I could not believe my eyes when I saw that. But it's going to happen, whatever it is what it is. But regarding the offense, Profar is having some really bad struggles. Hosmer is having some pretty bad struggles at the plate. Will Myers is having some pretty bad struggles at the plate as of late. I don't know about Profar and Hosmer, but I think Will Myers is batting like 230 or 240 in the last 7 games or so. And I feel like, he's batting 6th in the lineup. I feel like he's coming up with runners on, and it feels like more often than not he's just not really coming through, and that's not really the Will Myers that we're used to. We're kind of used to Will Myers bringing in a lot of runs, hitting those bombs that we expect to see out of him, being a 270, 280 hitter, I think. But I fully think they're going to come around, especially Will, because Will's been consistent. Even last year, we saw he was one of the best hitters in our lineup, and I still think he is. I still think he has it in him. The thing that's really keeping me afloat with Hosmer is that he's been great with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. And Profar, though, it's kind of hard to justify anything for Profar. And I really love Profar. I'm one of his, I'm a huge fan of Profar, but it's kind of hard to back him up right now. He's struggling at the plate. Hopefully that turns around. I definitely think it will. I think, like Chase said, you could either attribute it to the Padres struggling or the Mets having a really good rotation. I think it's both. The Mets are one of the best rotations in baseball, and they showed that, especially DeGrom and Stroman. They're one of the best 1-2 punches right now. So, I mean, I definitely think the Padres are going to turn it around on offense, though. We know what they got.
Yeah, I agree with you. You did talk about left field a little bit. Tommy Pham has been getting on base at a really high rate. So got to bring up his name of just a guy that's been playing well lately. But missing Austin Nola, I think that's kind of an underrated aspect of the offense, just because, I mean, Caratini's come up clutch so many times, so it's kind of made people forget about like Austin Nola, like how big of an impact he does have on the lineup. When he started to get a little like going after being out for a while, he had been back for a couple weeks. He had that one series where he just exploded offensively, and then really shortly after that, he goes down again. So want to see him healthy because I think that helps the lineup a ton. And I think it's a little bit overshadowed by Trent Grisham being out. Also, bringing Grisham back in the lineup can mean so much too, not just defensively. Because Chase, you brought that up. I think that he was the Gold Glove center fielder last year. I mean, he makes a lot of stellar plays in center field. Also, does a great job around the wall where like Profar made his. I guess he made a mistake on that one fly ball, and then the home run. I don't know if he even would have had a chance to rob it, but just a tough couple plays for him there. I think Grisham does play those a little bit differently, but Grisham offensively, we've talked about it. I mean, since 2020, since he's been on the Padres, I know a couple weeks ago this was the case. I don't know if it still is, but he was a top 10 WAR player. So this is a guy we've talked about. We think he's a star player in this league. We think he has a chance to be that. So hopefully he's back soon because we thought that he might be back and Fernando wasn't, and then we got Fernando back, which they're not complaining about that. It was Fernando was electric, especially those first 2 games of the series. But I think that's probably going to do it for this segment just on the Mets. We're gonna get talking about some potential trades here. And if you're listening on YouTube, you can get those trades. If you just go on over to the podcast, we'll have the whole episode there. So that's going to do it for this segment, though.